is Damaris Kemunto. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I work at the Kenyan section of the International Commission of Juries as a program officer. I specifically handle the equality, rights and inclusion. So some of the initiatives that ICJ Kenya has undertaken to advance the rights of women is, first, we have joined the campaign on the abolition of the death penalty. It is a multi-stakeholder campaign, and we have joined the gendered approach of the campaign, whereby we highlight the intersectional discrimination that women face in the criminal trial process leading to the death penalty. And some of the offenses that attract the death penalty in Kenya majorly is murder, robbery with violence, attempted robbery with violence, and treason. And when you look at the statistics from the Kenya Prison Service, most of these women who are on death row have committed murder. And reports from courts indicate that these women have committed murder majorly in response to gender-based violence or in self-defense. And at times in the criminal trial process, when these women are undergoing the criminal trial process, during sentencing specifically, the incidences of gender-based violence are rarely considered as mitigating circumstances. So, we feel that when the court fails to consider gender-based violence as a mitigating circumstance, it curtails these women their right to fair trial, which is an underogable right in our Constitution of Kenya. So we joined the campaign on the abolition of the death penalty, specifically the gendered approach, just to highlight some of this intersectional discrimination that women face. And the campaign has bore fruits, but we are still not there yet, because when you look at the jurisprudence emerging out of our advocacy, a landmark decision of the Trufena and Donga Aswani case, whereby the court actually considered the incidences of gender-based violence that Trufena underwent, and the court passed a sentence and a judgment of a one-day non-custodial sentence. So you see, when courts consider such incidences, then we feel that accused persons are actually granted their right to fair trial. So other initiatives that ICJ Kenya has undertaken is research. We have conducted research specifically on technology-assisted violence against women, because gender-based violence can take different forms. And in a world whereby in a rapid technological shift, we get some kind of violence become graduated in the technological space. And very few people advocate against such types of vices, and perpetrators mostly go unpunished, and the victims do not know the avenues to report, especially in the digital space. So ICJ Kenya, we conducted a research on the prevalence of the different forms of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, specifically against women. And even statistics from the UN Women indicate that women, especially in their who use the online space in their professional capacity, encounter such forms of online violence. And there are gaps in the legal and regulatory framework, because some of the legislations that are supposed to address such vices do not explicitly provide for online violence as an offense, and it does not provide for the punishment that a perpetrator can be sentenced to in the event that they are found culpable of perpetrating online violence. Apart from research, ICJ Kenya has been conducting public interest litigation on sexual and gender-based violence cases. More specifically, the Petition 122 of 2013, which seeks to highlight some of these sexual gender-based violent vices that some of the survivors during the post-election 2007 post-election violence underwent. So we seek to address the access to justice needs of these survivors through public interest litigation, and also to build on the jurisprudence of sexual and gender-based violence cases. Noting that online violence is a new form of violence, or rather a not spoken form of violence and a graduated form of violence, some of the measures that we can take to curb such kind of violence is continued advocacy. People need to know that there are different forms of online violence and the reporting mechanisms of such kinds of violence. So we believe that with continued advocacy on these forms of violence, people will be made aware and people will be able to know the reporting mechanisms. We also believe that when we conduct research, a lot of research and writing a lot of publications about online form of violence, it will be able to reach a wider audience and will be able to highlight some of the recommendations that you can put out to the relevant state and non-state actors so that they can take up to just to make sure that this kind of violence is completely eradicated. I believe that the fight against sexual and gender-based violence should be taken through a holistic and multi-stakeholder approach because it touches through the right to health, right to education. It is a multi-stakeholder and multi-sectoral vice that I believe all stakeholders should come together just to strengthen the fight against sexual and gender-based violence. I call for action, especially to the government, and noting the theme for this year's 16 days of activism is that Kenya should implement its commitment during the Generation Equality Forum, especially on the financing of the response mechanisms to SGBV.